I am Chelsea. A few weeks ago, my father, who had been battling illness, passed away. Regret filled me as I wished I could have shown him his grandchildren. The words escaped my lips along with a sigh. I got married 5 years ago, at the age of 25. At my wedding, my father and I made a promise. I'll let you know first when I get pregnant. However, that promise remained unfulfilled, and it became my only regret about my father. His illness was discovered a year ago, and since then, I did everything I could for him. I regularly returned to my parents' home, visited the hospital with my mother, and increased the frequency of phone calls and video chats. Despite my efforts, I couldn't help but wonder if I could have done more. As I muttered these thoughts, my mother, sitting next to me, reassured me, saying, "You did well, Chelsea. Your father would be satisfied." Just then, my sister Portia returned, bringing the lawyer with her. My sister entered the living room, accompanied by a man in his mid-40s, whom I assumed was the lawyer. He handed me his business card, introducing himself as Samuel, the attorney. Gratefully, I acknowledged his presence, and my mother guided him to his seat. As soon as the lawyer sat down, my sister blurted out, "I heard from this lawyer that Dad left quite an inheritance." I quickly clarified, "It's not all for you, Portia." An uneasy tension filled the room as my sister glared at me, revealing our strained relationship. We used to be okay, but things soured when we found out about Dad's illness. Despite my attempts to bridge the gap, my sister's arrogant attitude and reluctance to visit our father only worsened our relationship. I expressed my frustration, but she insisted, "I'm not being stubborn. I live in the city, and it's not easy to come to the countryside." Our argument continued, and I realized that our relationship had deteriorated quickly. Even though she lived far away, I believed she could have visited once in a while. In the end, she stopped talking, and the tension hung in the air. Attempting to defuse the situation, the lawyer intervened, saying, "Let's calm down, please." I apologized, and the lawyer nodded before continuing. "As I mentioned on the phone, I have your father's will." My mother inquired, "When did this happen?" The lawyer replied, "A few weeks before he passed away. He contacted me, so I went to the hospital to have him sign the will in front of me, with his primary physician present." It turned out they had arranged for the primary physician to contact the lawyer. After my father passed away, the lawyer was contacted. He, in turn, reached out to us, explaining the circumstances. "That's how we find ourselves here today," the lawyer said, producing a white envelope and placing it in front of us. Inspecting the envelope, I mumbled, "This is definitely Dad's handwriting." My sister Portia seemed impatient, saying, "Never mind, just tell us what's in it. I'm busy, you know." The lawyer, with a wry smile, opened the envelope to reveal a single piece of paper. "This is what was written there," he began, explaining that besides the house and land, our father's inheritance included some savings and a storage shed. The mention of the storage shed puzzled me. My sister, however, interrupted angrily. "Wait a minute. You didn't mention the farm." "The farm, yes," I added, recalling that it was a hobby my father took up after closing his company. He had started farming near our home until he fell ill. My sister insisted that the farm should be part of the inheritance. Reviewing the documents, the lawyer found a note and revealed, "The farm is rented land." Disappointed, my sister thought we owned it, but I silently considered it might be for the best since we knew little about farming. The conversation shifted to dividing the inheritance. "The house and land go to the wife," the lawyer declared. My sister was content, but the lawyer suggested dividing the rest as we pleased. My sister promptly claimed the cash from the savings, approximately $100,000. Protesting against this selfish arrangement, I objected. "Wait a minute. I'm the oldest daughter. That's irrelevant. I'll take the storage shed." My sister turned to the lawyer, asking, "What even is that?" The lawyer explained, "It's the storage shed next to the house. You'll inherit the building, the land, and its contents." My sister's eyes lit up, and she eagerly accepted. As I questioned her motives, the lawyer continued, "It's about 65 square feet, roughly the size of a small bedroom. Reacting with distaste, my sister grimaced as the lawyer placed photos of the shed on the table. The exterior looked run down, and the interior contained only basic tools, nothing valuable. My sister declared, "I don't want it." I took the photos and painted them myself. It was all quite ordinary. Though these are sentimental items, they won't fetch much money, I thought. As I pondered, my sister spoke up, saying, "Fine, I'll take the cash. You can have that dirty shed." "Hold on, that's not fair. You agreed to the vegetable farming. What are you complaining about now?" my sister retorted. It was difficult to argue against her point, but if I didn't speak up, she'd take all of Dad's inheritance. My sister pressed me, asking, "So we're good then?" Struggling to answer, my mother chimed in, "As long as Portia won't complain later, I have no objections." My sister grinned, and it seemed settled. However, feeling uneasy, I immediately objected, saying, "Well, I'm not satisfied." "Give it up. You're so greedy, aren't you?" my sister remarked, calling me a hassle. Frustrated, I insisted, "That's not it. You care more about Dad than money, right?" Her words left me speechless, realizing that family is more important than money. Before I could say more, my sister ended the conversation. In the end, my mother got the house and land. My sister received Dad's savings, and all that was left for me was the dirty shed. My sister signed a document promising not to complain about the inheritance division, laughing loudly. Full of complaints, I couldn't help but vent to my mother, asking, "Mom, why didn't you help me?" She replied, "I did help you. You decided with Portia." I argued, "That's not true. I made sure you got the shed." My mother assured me, "You might find something surprisingly good if you look closely." The next day, armed with the key from the lawyer, I headed to the shed near the field, a 10-minute walk from home. It was a rural road where no one else passed by. Upon reaching the field, which my father had rented for the past year, I opened the dusty shed with the key. As I looked around, there was nothing special inside, just tools for farming. Disappointed, I mumbled, "Maybe I should just take what's inside for now." However, upon closer inspection, I noticed that the shed felt smaller from the inside than it appeared from the outside. Puzzled, I walked around to the back and discovered another door. Gasping, I realized there was a space accessible only from the back. Excited, I thought this must be Dad's surprise. Remembering his love for surprises, I began tearing up. Rummaging through the shed, I found 2 keys hidden in the handle of a shovel. Trying one in the back door, it clicked open. Inside the cramped space, a large safe stood alone. Recognizing it from Dad's company, I hugged the safe, feeling fulfilled. Thinking that there had to be more surprises, I inserted the second key into the safe. With a slightly rusty sound, the safe opened, revealing contents that left me in disbelief. I was stunned. Inside was an unexpected inheritance. Overwhelmed with thoughts, I realized I had to tell Mom. Locking the safe, I rushed to her and, after explaining the situation, called my husband. Together, we moved the safe from my parents' house. However, a realization hit me. The contents were undoubtedly Dad's. If it's part of my inheritance, including the shed, I might have to pay inheritance tax. Better get this thoroughly checked out. The valuable contents warranted consultation with the lawyer about inheritance tax. According to the lawyer, consulting a certified public accountant was advised. A friend referred me to an accountant, and I left the complicated matters in their capable hands. A year passed in this way, and just when I thought things had settled down, my sister showed up near my home. "What brings you here all of a sudden?" I asked. "Well, I had some business at our parents' house, so I stopped by." "Something like that," my sister replied. Her behavior struck me as odd. Despite the proximity of our homes, we weren't the kind of sisters who would casually visit, especially after the tension over Dad's inheritance. Suspicion lingered as I looked at her. Acting a bit nervous, my sister asked, "Can I come in?" I agreed, but her visit was unusual. After serving coffee, she started fidgeting and finally spoke, "So, did you win the lottery or something?" I shook my head in confusion. No, I didn't. Did your husband get a bonus? I replied, I never buy lottery tickets, and my husband's bonus isn't due now. What are you talking about? Angrily, she exclaimed. What are you making fun of me for? Money, you had it, don't you? She excitedly shared a story from a few days ago when she ran into our aunt in the city. The aunt mentioned receiving a $500 gift card as a thank you for visiting Dad. My sister assumed I sent it and believed I had come into extra money. She interrogated me, insisting that I admit to a windfall. Sighing, I clarified. It was a thank you gift from the inheritance. My sister didn't like my attitude and accused me of mocking her. I explained, no, it was a genuine thank you gift, but she pressed, demanding to know where I got the money. I replied, from the inheritance, remember? So, I sent thank you gifts to relatives who had helped us. Upon hearing this, my sister frowned and remarked, all you got was that dirty shed. I nodded, confirming her statement, but then added, there was a safe inside it. That's where the real inheritance was. Perplexed, my sister questioned, a safe? Real inheritance? I carefully explained to her about the watches in the safe, all of them valuable and collected by our father as a hobby during his lifetime. However, I admitted not knowing their exact value. On the other hand, the remaining savings were about $100,000, which seemed small considering our father's background as a business owner who could retire early. This led me to believe he might have invested a significant amount in those watches. My mother, upon seeing the contents of the safe, had expressed concern about potential inheritance tax. Seeking guidance, I asked her, what should I do, Mom? After some thought, she advised, things like this always come out. You should declare it properly. Let's ask that lawyer we spoke to recently. I consulted the lawyer again, who explained that if you inherit valuables, the inheritance tax is determined by their value at that time. He also suggested that a certified public accountant could handle it for me. Following this advice, I left it to the accountant. The results revealed that the watches alone were worth at least $500,000. Faced with this valuation, I questioned, how should I pay the inheritance tax? The accountant suggested, how about keeping the ones you're emotionally attached to and selling the rest? Agreeing with the practicality of this approach, I sold some watches, used the money to pay the inheritance tax, and sent thank you gifts to the helpful relatives, the gift cards my sister had mentioned. By the way, I kept items like the pocket watch my father often wore, which held the most memories for me. I showed it to my sister while explaining the story, saying, this one isn't expensive, but it holds the most memories for me. However, my sister frowned upon hearing my story. What? You don't have any left? She asked. I replied, no, there are still some in the safe, which is at Mom's. It's too big for this house. It's the one Dad used at his company. My sister looked away, seeming deep in thought. Feeling uneasy, I anticipated her reaction, but she surprised me by standing up and saying, I'm leaving now that I know where the money came from, and left. Considering my sister's money-minded nature, I expected her to demand a share of the money from the watch sales. I was relieved she left without making a fuss. However, in my relief, I forgot the unease I had felt earlier, only to be reminded of it late that night when I received a call from my mother. Chelsea, it's urgent. Come over right away, my mother explained. Alarmed, my husband and I rushed to her house, noticing something strange as we approached. The area around my parents' house was lit up in red, and as we got closer, several police cars were parked outside. What's going on? I wondered, and the reason became clear, a distressing situation unfolding at my parents' house. I navigated through the crowd, calling out to my mother, what happened, Mom? According to her, it was after 9 p.m., and feeling tired, she had already gone to bed. Shortly afterward, she heard strange noises, sounds like someone searching for something coming from beyond the door. Oh, it's a burglar, my mother instantly thought. Feeling helpless as she was alone in the house, she decided to escape through the window. Glancing back, she saw the light of a flashlight moving inside the house, confirming her suspicion of a burglar. Convinced, she ran to the neighbor's house and urgently sought help, saying, "There's a burglar." Upon hearing this, the neighbor promptly came out, and they both observed the swinging light my mother pointed at, thinking it was a burglar. They called the police, who arrived soon after. However, it turned out not to be a burglar at all. It was my sister who had sneaked into the house to rummage through the safe. Influenced by my story, neither my mother nor the neighbor knew this. When the police arrived, my sister, realizing she was in trouble, attempted to make a quick escape. In her rush, she accidentally bumped into the open door of the safe, causing it to topple over and fall onto her as she tried to flee. That's how Portia got trapped under the safe, and she was taken to the hospital by ambulance, complaining of leg pain. Stunned, I was truly dumbfounded by the turn of events. Afterward, my mother and I apologized to the police officers for the late-night disturbance. I also called my sister's husband, who expressed disbelief, exclaiming, "Wait, you're saying Portia broke into her own family home and got injured?" "Yes, that's correct," I replied, shocked and disappointed. Her husband revealed that Portia had accumulated a significant amount of debt, spending extravagantly on brand-name items. The couple had a massive fight, leading Portia to storm out, declaring she would borrow from Mom to pay it back. It turned out she had already used the $100,000 she inherited to settle some of her debts. However, still short, she came to me, seeking more money. Learning about the contents of the safe triggered her actions, resulting in this entire mess. No wonder her husband was furious. In the end, my sister, with a fractured leg, was hospitalized, and her husband started talking about divorce. Despite her protests, he brought divorce papers to the hospital, and she had no choice but to sign. Now she lies in her hospital bed, stunned by the unfolding events. I noticed a part-time job magazine next to her, suggesting she's contemplating working part-time to pay off her debts. As for me, I decided to move back to my parents' home amid all the commotion. Concerned about my mother and another significant reason, I found out I'm pregnant. After discussing it with my husband, we decided to move back home and have my mother assist us with childcare. Although I wish I could have shared the news of my pregnancy with my father while he was alive, I'm certain he would be happy for us. So, I'm looking forward to giving birth to a healthy baby. Don't act all high and mighty over a measly $12,000. You're useless. Try cutting off your financial support and see if I care. Even though I've been sending money to my brother and his wife for 10 years, why do they have to berate me like this? Fine by me. With that, I firmly hung up the phone. They should be the ones worried, not me. I won't help them anymore, no matter what happens. My name is Angela. I live with my husband Niles and our son Seth. Niles is incredibly kind. He actively helps around the house and spends quality time with Seth. I've been living a happy life, but I have a concern. It's about my older brother Freddie and his wife Isla, who live in our family home. Our mom, named Jean, retired and moved back home after Freddie and Isla declared they would take care of her. Growing up in a single-parent household, I was worried, so I gladly accepted Freddie's offer. To show my gratitude, I've been sending Mom $12,000 every month. But things seemed off after Freddie and Isla started managing the money. Whenever I forgot to send the money, Isla would angrily call me. Each time, I'd rush to transfer the funds. Mom's behavior also seemed strange lately. She's been distant on the phone, often comparing me to Freddie. Freddie has always struggled academically and isn't athletic. Mom used to complain about how Freddie didn't study as much as I did, but now the tables have turned. I didn't understand why Mom's attitude changed, but I never stopped the financial support. At the beginning of a new month, Isla calls my cell phone as usual. "Did you forget this month's money? What's the deal?" she scolds. "I'm sorry. I'll transfer it right away." "You're so clumsy. How do you even manage to raise a child?" Isla berated me, urging me to transfer the money quickly. I felt like I was being extorted and uneasy about the whole situation. Is this how financial support is supposed to work? Isla's aggressive behavior started when she first met our family. The first time she saw me, she scoffed. "Who's this plain girl?" "Freddie's sister." "No way." I was taken aback. I never expected such a comment from someone I just met. Mom defended me, and I remember that clearly. Isla's attire was a miniskirt and a flashy leopard print jacket. "Isn't it inappropriate to wear that to meet your fiance's family?" I thought so, but I didn't say anything. Isla's behavior only escalated from there. I vented to my husband, who was also upset. I found solace, but the idea of having her as family was disconcerting. However, Freddie wasn't the most sensible person either, so I assumed I'd get used to it. Their behavior worsened after moving into the family home. I wondered if Mom was okay living with them, but with work and raising Seth, I couldn't visit Mom and was left in the dark about the details of her well-being. Amidst our busy lives, Mom suddenly called at the end of the month as usual. I had just dropped my son off at the child care center and was about to head to work when I received a phone call from her. "What's wrong?" I asked, but Mom sounded furious. When I asked her to explain, she said something outrageous. "Where's this month's money?" I was shocked. I had already sent the money at the beginning of the month. I told her I transferred it to Freddie's account, but she angrily claimed she hadn't received it. Surprised, I asked her to check again, but she wouldn't listen. "You've become so irresponsible after all I did to raise you. Right now, you're sending less money. You're so ungrateful." I did send the $12,000. Enough excuses. Send the $12,000 now. If I don't get it next month, I'll cut ties with you. Learn from Freddie. He always sends $500 on time. Why am I expected to send $1.02 to 000 when Freddie only sends $500? Angry, I yelled back that I did send the money and hung up. It might have been a bit childish, but I wanted to be clear about the money. If Mom's going to unfairly scold me again next month, I need to check in with my brother. There's a chance his wife is up to something. Determined, I headed to work, my footsteps echoing with frustration. The next month, as usual, I got a call from my sister-in-law. "Did you forget this month? I always tell you to transfer at the beginning of the month, don't I?" I asked her about Mom's behavior last month, to which she responded, "Oh, she might have been a bit upset, but I leave everything about Mom to Freddie. If you're concerned, ask him. More importantly, make sure you transfer the $1.02 to 000. Got it?" She hung up without waiting for an answer. Taking her advice, I decided to contact my brother. "Hey, I wanted to talk about Mom," I said. He responded with annoyance. "What now?" I told him about the angry call from Mom last month and how she was upset about not receiving the money. To my shock, he said, "We're struggling too." Since moving back home, we decided to give Mom $500 from your $12,000 and $500 from my salary. We used the rest this month. We had some extra expenses, so we used all of your $1.02 to 000. I was stunned. I couldn't fathom that my money was being used by my brother instead of Mom. Filled with anger, I confronted him, but he skillfully dodged my questions, leaving me feeling helpless. I hung up, contemplating whether I should inform Mom about the situation. Calling her, I relayed everything my brother had said, but she refused to listen. "You're just making excuses. You probably didn't send the money this month either. I sacrificed so much for you, and this is how you repay me," Mom said, tears streaming down her face. Feeling helpless, I asked Mom to switch to a video call to prove that I had properly transferred $12,000. Mom hesitated but eventually switched to a video call. I displayed my bank card with the transaction history, hoping she would understand. However, Mom remained skeptical. "You probably faked this. I heard on the news that it's easy to make these things now. Just pay this month's amount, and we'll talk after that," she insisted. I transferred the $12,000, hoping that it would resolve the issue. Mom, acting high and mighty, demanded to see my brother's bank card as well before hanging up. Trusting Mom and my brother, I transferred the money for the current month, believing that she would realize I was right. However, a few days later, I received another angry call from Mom. Confused, I waited for her to explain. She angrily claimed that she hadn't received the money for this month and was struggling to make ends meet. I insisted that I transferred the money on the day I called her and suggested checking with my brother. When I called my brother, he responded gruffly, claiming that Isla had the bank card, and it was none of my business how they used the money. Frustrated, I contacted my sister-in-law, who nervously laughed and admitted, "Oops, got caught. I saw the transfer from you and immediately withdrew the $12,000 to buy a designer bag. I plan to repay it soon, but I work part-time and haven't received my paycheck yet." I was incredulous. That money was intended for Mom, not for their leisure. Angrily, I demanded she return the $12,000. However, my sister-in-law snapped back, "Don't act all high and mighty over just $1.02 the 000. You're useless. You're a full-time worker. You must have more money. Just transfer another $1.02 the 000. I was furious. I couldn't believe my money was being used like this. That weekend, I went straight to my parents' house, and my brother and sister-in-law seemed surprised by my sudden visit. Mom welcomed me in, asking if I brought the money. I stated that I had transferred the money and wanted to confirm it, intending to see my brother's bank card. When I confronted my sister-in-law, she made a disgusted face. "Lila, you have the bank card, right? Show it to me." "Why should I show it to you?" "Because I transferred $12,000 to my brother's account," I insisted. However, she refused to show me. "You said you'd return it, right? You've received your paycheck by now, haven't you?" When I glared at her, she tried to dodge the question. "You're trying to blame me for not transferring, aren't you? I've transferred it properly." As we argued, Mom shouted in anger, "Angela, enough. I thought you brought the money. Lila would never misuse it." She pushed me towards the door. "If you came here for that, then go home. You're no longer my daughter." In my anger, I retorted, "Fine, I'll stop sending money. You might not know, but my brother and his wife aren't as good as you think. They told me they only give you $500 out of the $1.02 the 000 I send. They're deceiving you." "You're lying." "Then I won't send money anymore," I declared. My brother sneered, "Go ahead and stop. If you do, we're done." Gladly, I left my family home with those words. "I'm done. I won't help them anymore, no matter what happens." When I told my husband about what happened at my family home, he comforted me, saying, "Angela, you've been sending $12,000 for 10 years. It's okay to stop. Don't worry about it. Plus, your brother and his wife are there, right? They'll manage somehow." "You're right. I'm sorry it came to this. It's okay. It's not your fault. Besides, sending money is a gesture of goodwill, right? Everyone's an adult. If they wanted to, they could get full-time jobs. You don't need to worry about them." Hearing that from my husband, I felt reassured. Right. Sending money is a matter of goodwill. My brother is an adult and has ways to earn money. I don't need to support my brother and Mom's life, nor should I be forced to. I guess I've always felt obligated because I've been cleaning up after my brother and Mom's mistakes for so long. I've always wondered why you had to take care of your family and brother. It seemed strange, but I thought you were okay with it. Then it was fine. But now your family is me and Seth, right? You can help your family and brother if something happens. But you don't need to guarantee their livelihood every month. Hearing that from my husband felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Then, in the middle of the next month, my mobile phone rang incessantly. It was my brother and his wife. I had planned to sever ties with them, so I was curious about the call. "Hello? Why didn't you send money this month? I told you I'd stop. Besides, you don't need it. You have each other, huh? Are you sure about that? We're done. I have nothing to do with you anymore," I said, hanging up. That evening, my sister-in-law was waiting outside my house when I returned from work, holding my son's hand. I was taken aback as she approached me aggressively, berating me in the hallway of my condo. "Do you think you can get away with this?" "What do you mean? We've cut ties. Don't come here again." Hearing that, she stomped her foot in anger, yelling and cursing. Someone from the neighborhood must have called the police because they arrived shortly after. She was taken away by the police. In disbelief, I immediately called my brother. "Lus stormed into your place and got arrested. Why did that happen?" "It's cruel of you to call the police. We're family." "I didn't call them. Someone else did." "Can you please have her stop asking for money? It's a bad influence on my son, and I don't want anything to do with you anymore." When I firmly responded, my brother went silent and then began pleading in a weak voice. "Look, I work part-time, and Ula works part-time too. Mom's pension is small, and we can't live without your $12,000. You get that right. Most of the $12,000 goes to Lula's leisure, so you should be fine, right?" "No, it's not like that. Sure, she spends a bit recklessly. But we need the $12,000 for our lives. Please send it this month." "Why should I support you? You probably only give Mom $500 anyway," I replied, hanging up. I decided never to answer calls from my brother or sister-in-law again. I received many texts from my brother, but I only looked at them and ignored them. My sister-in-law kept trying to contact me, which was annoying. But maybe because she was arrested, she didn't come to my house. A few months later, I finally got a call from Mom. "Angela, Freddie hasn't been giving me money lately. I'm struggling. I was mad before, but I realized I only have you." Mom's voice sounded weak. She then started complaining about how my brother and his wife had been treating her lately. "They're terrible. They don't even give me $500 now, and they're living off of my pension. I told them to get full-time jobs if they need money, but they don't listen. Lud is hardly ever home. What should I do?" Mom began to cry in a heartbroken voice. However, I didn't feel sympathy for her. I had trusted both Mom and my brother, but they betrayed me. On top of that, they told me we were done to begin with. I went to college without borrowing money from Mom. I even paid off my brother's student loans that Mom had been burdened with. That's more than enough. Mom, if you don't want your pension taken by them, why not kick them out of the house? They're adults. They can manage on their own. I gave that piece of advice and ended the call with Mom. She seemed to want to say more, but I had made up my mind not to get involved. They can figure things out on their own. I have my own challenges to deal with. In the end, it seems Mom kicked out my brother and his wife because of their terrible attitude. Having been evicted, they apparently moved into an old apartment. Since that incident, Mom hasn't been very involved in my life, perhaps feeling awkward. Once my brother called, he kept trying to contact me, and when I answered, he said they were in debt because of his wife's excessive spending. He asked for help, but I ignored him. I no longer see Mom, but I live happily with my son and husband.